Hello, Vinyl community. This is Tommy in North Carolina, and I wanted to do an entry for Billy Hurst 500 subs contest. I think he's got quite a few more than that, but hi, Billy, and I've been enjoying your videos, and more importantly, happy 44th birthday. And I just want to point out that this is official video number 44 for me. So I waited to do this because I wanted to kind of get the number right, so it would be number 44 in honor of you. And so what he's asked for this contest entry is 4 albums from the year he was born, 1974, 4 favorite albums, 4 from the year that I was born, and then 4 country albums. So I'm going to get right to it and carry right along. So from 1974, the 4 albums that I chose, and these aren't in any particular order, and these are 4 albums from 1974 that I happen to love a whole lot. The first is the Electric Light Orchestra, a symphony. This is called El Dorado. Despite I think it's a terrible album cover with the Wizard of Oz thing. But as an album, it's absolutely great. And to me, this is where ELO becomes ELO. This is where Jeff Lynne finds his voice as a producer and a writer. And this is sort of the real sort of solid ELO pop rock album. It's got Boy Blue, Can't Get It Out of My Head. And the whole thing's woven together by this string theme that comes in at the beginning. It's about a dreamer who is asleep, and he dreams of El Dorado. But it's just a very good, well put together, well done album, full of solid songs and wonderful material. 1974, I can't go without mentioning Big Star's Radio City. Big Star is one of my all-time favorite bands. I'm sure most everyone knows the story of Big Star. This is the second album that came out after Chris Bell left the band, even though Chris did have some involvement with this release. But this is pretty much Alex Chilton's baby at this point, but a little more ragged and loose than number one record. So there's a lot of debate on between this and number one record, but I'm a big fan of Radio City. I like that ragged edge that sort of permeates throughout the album. The songs are really just on the edge of falling apart, and plus it's got that great cover by William Eggleston, photographer. Just a classic power pop record and one of my favorites. And Billy, I'm sorry, I know you're not a big fan. I don't think you are of Neil, but Neil Young's On the Beach. This is a great album. This is where Neil kind of, as he said, steered toward the ditch after some success with Harvest and all that. He didn't want to be pigeonholed as that singer-songwriter guy, and so he started doing some records that were a little bit edgier, a little bit on the outskirts. Maybe it wasn't reaching for radio success, but On the Beach is a fine effort. The album opens up with Walk On, which is a driving song, but Ambulance Blues, Vampire Blues, For the Turnstiles. It's a moody record. It's Neil just finding a voice and doing some stuff that's just that's definitely a little more out there. And finally, I'm a big Zappa fan, and this is probably Zappa's most commercial release, Apostrophe. This was from 1974. It had quite a few of his hits, like Cosmic Debris and Don't Eat the Yellow Snow are on this album. Also, you've got Stinkfoot and the title track. So there's quite a few of these songs that are very well known from the Zappas. Probably one of his most commercial. It's not as absolutely wacky and weird as a lot of people know Zappa for, but it's a good sound, and it works. And so Apostrophe. So now 4 albums from the year that I was born. I was born in 1975, and so I did my vinyl tag. So I'll go ahead and get this one out of the way because I talked about it there. Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. That's my favorite album from the year I was born. It's one of Dylan's best albums. It's probably his best effort from the 70s. Definitely one of the best efforts, and it'll go down as one of the best albums Dylan ever wrote and recorded. Kind of going through a messy divorce with his wife Sarah, and there's a lot of hurt in those tracks, blood on the tracks. Another one is what I consider to be a very underrated album by one of my very favorite bands, The Who. This is The Who by Numbers. And Pete Townsend, by this point, was kind of going through a bit of a midlife crisis. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do with The Who and where they were going. So the songs are a little more introspective. There is the hit Squeeze Box that a lot of people know. But there's songs like However Much I Booze, Blue, Red, and Gray, which is a beautiful track. And Pete is sort of looking at his career, and he's looking at the punk movement that was sort of burgeoning and where he fit into all that. And so the lyrics take that angle. A lot of people thought it was a kind of almost suicidal or a suicide note. But I think it works. I mean, Pete Townsend's one of the most eloquent writers in rock music. And I think lyrically this album is one of the most interesting by The Who. He doesn't try to do any big concepts as he did with even Who's Next or Tommy or Quadrophenia. This is just a collection of songs. But it's really, really fantastic. All the songs are solid. Another interesting a song, Dreaming from the Waste, has a killer bass line by John Entwistle, who did the cartoon artwork here, which is a Follow the Numbers, Who by Numbers. Underrated Who album. It's way better than it deserves, and I guess when it stands in a catalog with things like Who's Next and Tommy, that it probably doesn't quite stack up, but a lot of really, really, really good material on this album. The next one is Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. I'll go out on a limb and say I might even like this record a little better than Dark Side of the Moon. I know Dark Side of the Moon is sort of the standard commercial Pink Floyd record, that and The Wall, but I definitely like this better than The Wall. But this is a warmer album. Most of you know the story. It's kind of a love letter to Syd Barrett and what was going on. And the famous story is Syd actually dropped in during these sessions, which kind of freaked the band out a little bit. But the whole idea, Wish You Were Here, in Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which is sort of the opening, but it's all about Syd and just the whole story there. But I think Gilmour's playing on this album is really nice and subtle. It's just it's a nice warm album from Pink Floyd. It doesn't reach too hard to go into some high concept stuff, but it's got some really, really nice material. So Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. And finally, from 1975, Sparks, Indiscreet. I don't know if there's a lot of people that talk about Sparks here in the vinyl community. I know that when I was introduced to this album, I had no idea who this band was, and they were playing it at my local record store, and I went in, and my immediate response was, what is this insanity? Sparks is a nutty, nutty band, and there's a lot of, they just go all over the map. And that's the only way to describe Sparks, insanity. There's not really in particular genre. They just kind of explored a lot of everything. Crazy, operatic almost singing and just over-the-top vocals and just wild, wild arrangements. Just not your typical sort of straightforward verse-chorus rock music, but wildly interesting and an incredible group. But this is Sparks, Indiscreet from 1975. Now, 4 country albums, and it's hard for me to really pick 4 country albums because I grew up listening to country music, and being from Mississippi, it was a staple in my youth. My dad loved country music, and so I have a lot of great memories of going hunting with my dad and listening to country radio and hearing a lot of great country artists, Waylon, Willie, that whole thing. My dad had those in their collection. But I did pick 4 here, and they're sort of personal or favorites. But Merle Haggard's Serving 190 Proof. This is an album he did in the late 70s, and he kind of, this is in the middle of Merle, being one of the great country stars, and it's just a fantastic record, and his songwriting, to me, just is really put into one solid place. Red Bandana, My Own Kind of Hat, are both great songs. Of course, one of my favorites is the classic Footlights, which is just a Merle Haggard classic. I Didn't Mean to Love You. I Must Have Done Something Bad is just a solid song. Produced by Fuzzy Owen. This is Merle. Just I think if you wanted to just sum Merle up with one single album for a man that did a lot of music and had a lot of hits, this is the one to go with. I think it just really has the best of everything going for it. It bridges that gap between 60s Merle and that period into more outlaw Merle into the 80s. When country music got really kind of poppy sounding to me, but this is just a great country album, and Merle is one of the best singers. One of my favorite country artists, sadly overlooked as a country artist, is the Killer, Jerry Lee Lewis. The records he did for Smash and Mercury are, to me, some of the finest material he ever recorded, and I think Jerry Lee Lewis is one of the best country singers ever. Everyone always points to his piano playing and what he did there, but to miss out on his country records is to really overlook some great material. This is Another Place, Another Time. This has probably one of his biggest country hits. What's made Milwaukee famous has made a loser out of me. If you don't know that song, check it out. It's a classic tear-jerking, beer-drinking song. But, play me a song I can cry to. I'm a Lonesome Fugitive. He does some Merle on here. Another Place, Another Time, the title track. He does Break My Mind on here, the J.D. Loudermilk song. It's just, he's a fantastic artist. And like I said, had he not had a rock and roll sort of past or been related to Sun Records and Elvis and that whole thing, I think Jerry Lee Lewis would be considered one of the great country stars of all time. Certainly one of the great vocalists. Now here's one that I've talked about before, and I guess I need to talk about it for country albums, but Michael Nesmith, this is pretty much your standard ranch dash. I've talked in other videos about the Countryside label. He put together a house band with Jack Holzman and started a label called Countryside in the early 70s, and he did this album for RCA. And it's a straight-ahead country album. I don't really understand sometimes the words country rock. I guess the idea is when a rock artist does country music, guys like Graham Parsons and stuff, to me, a lot of that stuff is just straight-ahead country. But the reason I picked this album more than anything is because as I was sort of rediscovering country music back several years ago, I'd kind of fallen out with country music because I wasn't a big fan of the whole Garth Brooks thing and all of that, what was going on country radio. And so I really lost touch with real country music. And I was listening, funny enough, to the Monkees box set and heard some of Nesmith's outtakes, which is where he was experimenting with country music. And he was always had a little bit of a country flavor to what he was doing. But I was listening to those tracks like Some of Shelley's Blues and Nine Times Blue and some of those songs, and I realized that this is country music, and I really loved it, and it really kind of reached down deep inside of me because it brought back those memories, as I said earlier, of listening to country music with my dad and things like that. And I would have thought, Michael Nesmith, who knew? And I went to the record store and I bought this on CD. It was the first Michael Nesmith solo album I bought, and really not sure of what it was going to be. And I put it on, and it's a straight-ahead country album, if you ask me. There's no doubt about it. Of course, the album's called pretty much your standard ranch dash. That's an apt title, and like I said, this does have some of Shelley's Blues on it, which was recorded by people like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. But this is what really kind of put me over the top with as a sort of fan of Nesmith. But it's a country album, and so one of my four. And finally, again, this goes back to I don't know what country music is, but this is a fantastic album. I remember the first time listening to this, I was absolutely blown away. This is Jason Isbell's Southeastern. This is sort of his big breakthrough album, the album he made after getting sober, and really, I think this is the album that just skyrocketed him to where he is now. I think every award and every accolade he receives, he deserves, because he's one of the best writers right now in country music. If you want to call it country music, some people say Americana. I don't know. And so genres are weird. I would call him country, but you know, some of you might get on to me for it. But song for song, this album, just, I remember sort of holding my breath and listening to each song, because the lyrics are just so brilliant and wonderful. He's a great storyteller. Songs like Elephant and of course Cover Me Up, which I know won several awards, and rightfully so. This guy is just the bee's knees when it comes to songwriting, especially in this day and age. So if you've given up on good writers and good country music, Isbell definitely is doing his thing, and this is the album that puts him over more than any other to me. It came out in 2013, but there it is: 4 country albums, 4 1975 albums, and 4 1974 albums. Billy, congratulations! I hope your channel continues to grow. You're definitely deserving of it, and happy birthday! I hope that you have a wonderful year this year, and I hope that 44 is very, very good to you. In the meantime, like, subscribe, comment, share down below. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. I appreciate everyone that interacts here. It's great. And I know everyone says it, but I'm as sincere as anyone else or as anything else in saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I really do appreciate everyone that's taken time to watch my videos. Check out my other channel, Daily Records. I do a different record every day, and I appreciate everyone that's been tuning to that. Tim Allen, I think, he's made a comment every day, and I really do appreciate that. So thanks, Tim. And again, congratulations, Billy, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.